Hi, this is Sheb Varghese, and welcome to the Faith Colloquium podcast. Today, my guest is Camilla Canner. Camilla was one of my very first students in an introduction to philosophy, and later became a teaching assistant for me. And today we're talking about the differences between a Bible college education versus a liberal arts education. So Camilla, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before we go into all the differences between Bible college versus a liberal arts education, can you just start with how you made the decision to get to Bible college to where you are now?
Bible college was not my first choice for higher education. I actually thought I would go into engineering or a STEM field for the money and everything like that. But I had a realization or maybe a revelation from God that I was doing that for my own glory and to really promote myself rather than him and his will. And so upon realizing that, I decided to go into ministry and wanted an education to kind of help back that up. And so I settled on Moody Bible Institute for their aviation degree, where you could be a missionary pilot.
Okay.
Because I thought that was a good mix between STEM and ministry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So were you thinking you'd become like an engineer for initially or something like that for missionary pilots?
Yeah, I was wanting to use the skills that I had in physics and calculus and math and all those things that I was good at in high school, but then still be doing God's work as I thought it was.
Sure.
I had a weird view that if you weren't doing ministry, you weren't really glorifying God.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not correct. And I have since realized that. But I started off seeking to do ministry in that regard. Have since changed my major maybe 4 times since starting my undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's been good. But getting to Moody and getting into that Bible college bubble or just culture helped me grow in my faith in different ways and ultimately shaped me into what I want to be doing now, which is eventually pursuing a law degree. But before that can happen, I have to graduate. And Moody ended up closing, and I had to transition to a liberal arts university, Whitworth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in some ways you kind of, because you were initially not thinking of going to Bible college,
right.
So it kind of...
It worked out.
It worked out in some strange way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were at Moody, what was your last major that you were in?
I ended up with biblical studies with an interdisciplinary in biblical languages, which is a less intense or fewer credits, but essentially a minor.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're at Whitworth.
Yep.
And what's your major now?
The theology major is the one I picked up because that took all of my credits.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been there now for a semester.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So far, tell me what your experience has been with students, with professors in the class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I've really appreciated so far at Whitworth, by far the most thing that I've appreciated is the diversity of thought that they entertain, even within the theology department.
Okay.
Coming from a smaller Bible college with a specific, they had a doctrinal statement essentially, and professors had to sign off on their beliefs in order to work there. Whereas at Whitworth, it's much looser of a hiring process in regards to beliefs, religious beliefs. So there's an opportunity for different thoughts to be shared in regards to theology. And that's something that I very much appreciate. Moody definitely was not a culture that I always agreed with, although it served its purpose as a small Bible college, that it has conservative views. But coming and experiencing different views and hearing from professors that don't all agree has been something I really appreciated about Whitworth.
Okay. What do you feel like a Bible college did well?
Yeah, they were very good at encouraging just depth of thought.
Okay.
So rather than diversity of thought, it was very much getting into the nitty-gritty of theology and biblical studies as a biblical languages kind of interdisciplinary. I learned a lot about the ins and outs of Hebrew and Greek, and that was something that they did really well.
Yeah.
And in any of the majors, you got a really deep experience into the subject matter.
Sure.
which was good, but it was definitely from one side of the conversation kind of thing.
Sure. So like honing in on this one specific element opposed to exposing you to lots of different ideas and disciplines, and
which, you know, some professors did differently than others or provided different viewpoints better than others. But yeah, overall, it was one train of thought that was very well explained and very thoughtfully, you know, discussed.
Okay. So are there aspects of that you miss at all, or?
Yeah, well, as I'm only a transfer student, going to be here for a year, I don't have to take as many upper level courses actually. And so it could be just a factor that I'm taking like 200 level, 300 level courses rather than anything above that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a diversity and an expanse of knowledge being presented, but not as much depth. And that is something that I do miss, I think, depending on the class.
Was there anything when you switched over to Whitworth, like anything that kind of shocked you or surprised you about like, oh, this is like still a Christian university. It's a private Christian university, but I didn't expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always something going on campus, like a lecture from a scholar or a professor or whomever. And some of the scholars that they host were surprising to me at first, just because I wasn't used to having an advocate for LGBTQ rights come and speak at a school that I'd been to. So that was different. Another surprising thing was how conservative students feel that Whitworth is. Okay. Coming from a more conservative school and then having students complain about how conservative their liberal arts university is was surprising. But no, I think it was just that they entertained different ideas. Yeah. And ideas that a Bible college would view as like against the Bible. Sure. So yeah, that was surprising. Okay. Yeah.
Now you're thinking about becoming a lawyer.
Right.
Right. Do you feel like one or the other of these programs would have helped you better to do that? Or do you feel like, no, I could have graduated from either of these schools and they both would have like sufficiently trained me?
So it's interesting because I'm getting a theology degree and I would have been getting a biblical studies degree and then going to law school, which isn't usually how it goes.
Sure.
But for both, I feel that I am being grounded in my faith with my studies. Yeah. And am able to take that into a perhaps more secular vocation where my theology will influence how I interact with others, and that even if not directly by like talking about my theology. Yeah. And so they both have like served that purpose so far. Yeah. And I wouldn't have wanted to go to law school had I not experienced both, I think, just because of the push to serve justice that has come from my faith, which is being developed in both a Bible college and a liberal arts university. Yeah. As far as like more practical usage, I am able to take like a political science class and things like that at Whitworth, which wasn't an opportunity I would have had at a Bible college. Right. But I think I still would have been able to pursue a law degree had I just graduated from a Bible college. Okay. Yeah, just because of how intertwined my like desire to do that is with my faith. Okay. Yeah.
What kinds of conversations do students, we're like speaking of generalizations here, right? Like, so like you're walking through the halls of a Bible college, right? Like what are the conversations you kind of tend to hear in those circles versus like the conversations you might hear like at a place like Whitworth?
Yeah, there's a lot of debates about Calvinism versus Arminianism, I felt like.
At a Bible
college, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think that was somewhat facetious, but there were a lot of, not debates necessarily, but conversations about deeper theology that to some extent actually kind of worried me, just because I felt like we weren't actually using that to live and apply that theology, but just using it for head knowledge. Sure. But, I can't judge everyone's conversations. Yeah. But that kind of conversation was prevalent versus at Whitworth, there's a large diversity just because there's like a business school and things like that. And so hearing things from like the party that they attended last weekend to, a paper that they're writing for a theology class, it's kind of varied. I've had some really actually good conversations about like social justice issues with Whitworth students, which I really appreciated. It wasn't as much of a conversation at a small Bible college. And if it was definitely a debate where I was on opposing sides with another Bible college student. So yeah, I think that has been a marked difference of seeing the world and sometimes being in the world too much at Whitworth, but still being able to like see the world and how we are to live in it.
Yeah.
Not that Moody wasn't like that at
Right.
times. They definitely were good about promoting or like encouraging students in ministry and things like that, which I really appreciated.
Yeah. I wonder how much of your experience, like Whitworth particularly, because they're a liberal arts university, a private Christian liberal arts university, but they would probably be more on the moderate spectrum from like conservative to progressive, right? And there are other liberal arts universities that are probably a lot more conservative than Whitworth. And so I wonder how much of your experience, what it would be like to compare going to a Bible college and then going to like a conservative liberal arts university.
Yeah.
If that would feel more similar. I wonder if part of the contrast is because like Whitworth
is more moderate.
Yeah.
I wonder that as well. Although the opportunity to take non-Bible classes is going to be the same even at a conservative liberal arts university.
Yeah.
But I think of like Liberty University.
And
I think that would probably have been a much easier quote unquote transition from Moody to like Liberty University.
Interesting. Okay.
Although, you know, at the same time, that is a lot more like politically charged, which Moody wasn't about at all. So.
Right. Would you say that, again, like your experience with Bible college, that it was mostly training for people to do ministry, or do you feel like most of the students who were there were thinking like, well, I'm going to go into some non-traditional ministry related field, like law or like whatever that may be?
No, I think the majority were definitely going into some type of ministry.
Okay. Like becoming a pastor.
Yeah, becoming a pastor, missionary.
Okay.
Teaching English, you know, overseas or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I think that was really popular. I think, though, that there's definitely a category of like maybe disillusioned students.
Okay.
Who thought they were doing something different by wanting to go into a secular degree, which is fine. So I wasn't alone in, I think, my thoughts, but
sure.
Yeah.
And with your time with theology students at Whitworth, I'm guessing not all of them are thinking ministry.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen, and maybe it's just because there's a larger student body, but a lot more students who don't actually know what they want to do after they graduate, which, I mean, I think that's fine, but it's interesting because I would think that like coming to a university versus like a Bible college, you would have more of an idea.
Huh.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because a Bible college feels like something that your parents send you to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's definitely, I mean, people who like love school don't necessarily go to a Bible college.
Okay.
Is what I felt like. And I like really liked school. And so I felt like I stood out a little bit for that.
Okay.
People wanted to do that just because they wanted to go to ministry, but their parents wanted them to have a degrry kind of thing.
I see. Okay.
And so for that reason, they like, I guess, knew what they wanted to do on the other end. But Whitworth students are, I've not seen as many people with like a specific drive for what they want to do after they graduate.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you came over to Whitworth and started taking classes, did you have any sense of like, oh man, I've been gypped in like what I've been missing, like what I haven't been exposed to, or like what people haven't taught me or anything like that? Or was it like, oh, this is kind of interesting?
Right. Yes. I do want to caveat that with I like appreciate Moody for what it was.
Yeah.
And I think it stuck to its guns, which is admirable in some sense. But they didn't hire female Bible professors, Bible or theology professors.
Yeah.
And having taken now 2 classes from 2 different female Bible professors, I felt gypped in that regard because I wasn't getting that perspective at the smaller Bible college. And so that and just like the perspectives that they brought were really actually transformative. Some of the best classes I took this past semester. So the other things that were different, I kind of understood as Bible college not being the right context for those kind of classes or lectures or whatever. So that was fine. But those 2, specifically women teaching Bible, I felt like could have been incorporated at a smaller Bible college.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And so
I know before you were thinking about teaching as a possibility. If you were to do that, hypothetically, would you have any preference teaching in a Bible college classroom versus a private Christian liberal arts classroom?
Oh, that's a good question. It would depend on my like motivation at that time of my life because I feel the need to encourage college students who maybe don't know what they're doing with their faith, you know, taking that and applying it into their jobs or whatever. And so like teaching in a liberal arts university, I might have a better or more opportunities to like encourage students in that way.
Yeah. I know like part of your reasons for transferring over to Whitworth were proximity and things like that. But is it fair to say that if there were another Bible college here in Spokane, you still would have made the choice you did?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Part of me has that question of what if I had just gone to Whitworth the whole time?
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for what I did experience at Moody.
Yeah.
And I think it shaped me, obviously.
Yeah.
I wasn't unaffected by it. But I definitely, in how I currently view my education, am preferring the liberal arts university experience. So I think even if there had been another opportunity for a Bible college in proximity and financially that made sense, I think it still would have chosen Whitworth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone listening to this is like thinking about Bible college versus
right,
like a private Christian liberal arts school.
Mm-hmm.
Like thoughts you would share with them.
I mean, I want to express that they both have value for different reasons. And it really depends on what the goal is in higher education.
So that would be like a question you might ask them, like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What are your plans? What do you want to do? Yeah.
And do you want like depth versus diversity, maybe?
Okay.
And it may be possible to find both of those things
Yeah.
at a school. I just haven't experienced it in my education necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely looking into what they want as far as a very specific and like guided training towards ministry versus a broader worldview that kind of takes you through what is going on in religion and culture together, and that but less definitive and like this is what you should be doing with it necessarily. So I think those two kind of camps, or you'd have to figure out what you wanted.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I went to a liberal arts university, and when I came to teach at Moody, one of the first things that kind of struck me was how focused and kind of in-depth the content of classes was. The students from Bible college, they know biblical languages really well, right? They know early church history really well and all these things. So I was kind of surprised and happy to see that.
Right. I mean, it's really empowering for a younger generation to have that depth of knowledge, I think. To have the ones, leading in theology be younger, I think is a great step.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate how Moody did that.
Yeah.
Definitely really prepared people, and that depth was very evident in a lot of the students that I interacted with, my peers, and who are now off at seminary and ahead of their classes because they took 4 years of biblical languages or whatever. And so, I definitely think that was a really good aspect of a smaller Bible college. I mean, I was in your first class at Moody, and then working for you. It was definitely a different tone from the rest of the classes, and it was a philosophy class, so kind of had to be.
Sure.
But even taking a subject like philosophy that would have normally been brushed to the side as it's not a Bible class, it's a gen ed that I just need to get out of the way.
Right.
And making it applicable to Christians and then to everyday life, I think was a good change that you brought specifically as a teacher. Sure.
Yeah, the same suspicion of a discipline that's not Bible related. Yeah. There may not be that same kind of suspicion, right, in a liberal arts university, because it's kind of this is what you do.
Right. Liberal arts is because you're learning a lot of different things.
Right.
And, yeah.
So thanks for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share with your friends and please subscribe.